I'm dealing with a massive amount of acorns in my yard, and I'm trying 4 different methods of picking them up to see what actually works the best. Oak trees are awesome, but every year they drop all their acorns and it makes a huge mess. Here's the thing, they're not that easy to pick up. I wanted to try 4 totally different methods and products to see what works, what doesn't, and we're starting right now. The first method is probably the most obvious, and that's raking them up, but I'm not just using a regular rake. The problem is that acorns are heavy and dense, and they often sit on the ground, whereas leaves typically stay on top of the grass, making them easier to collect. This is the Groundskeeper 2, and it's a dethatching rake with metal tines designed to work down into the canopy of the grass to pull out the thatch layer, so I'm thinking it just might work to pull up acorns to the surface for easy collection. Starting out right away, and this rake is a beast. It's one of my favorite tools for lawn care, and I use it all the time, and I've mentioned it in tons of videos. It's really aggressive, and I can pull up a lot of material, but for this application, it's almost too aggressive. Or maybe it's just aggressive in the wrong way. I'm getting a lot of acorns, but I'm also getting a lot of grass with them, and I'm not sure that's what I want. I've got a nice little pile going, but you can see there's a lot of grass mixed in with my acorns. I think if I did this a lot, that I'd thin out my grass fairly quickly, and it's hard enough to get grass to grow under trees as it is. I don't think beating the crap out of the grass with this aggressive rake is going to be the answer. So what about a regular rake that you might already have, like just a plastic rake for leaves? Well, I tried that too, and the results were similar. It can float across the top of the lawn and rake leaves like a dream, but like I mentioned, the acorns are deep and I need to rake more aggressively to get them. And when I do, then I start to tear up the grass just like with the dethatching rake. Overall, raking only works okay for acorns at best, and it's not really a great solution in my opinion. Up next, I'm excited to try a purpose-built acorn collection tool, and when you Google how to pick up acorns, you'll see pictures of tools like these pop up as a very popular method. This particular one happens to be the Small Nut Gatherer by Garden Weasel. I'm going to have all the tools I'm using linked in the video description if you need more info. These tools are basically wire cages that flex apart as they roll over the nuts to allow the acorns to pass through and into the cage. Quickly rolling over the nuts should get me a hopper full of acorns if everything works as advertised. So here we go. This tool isn't bad per se, and I was able to collect acorns indeed. That part is accurate, and the tool does what it claims to do. To empty the hopper or the cage, just flex the side apart and create an opening that you can just dump the acorns out of. Okay, here's what I didn't like about this tool though, and it isn't obvious until you start using it. Number one, it's fairly short. Well, either that or I'm fairly tall. Regardless, it wasn't a good matchup, and you can see the angle and the bent over stance that I have to use to get this tool to function. I'm 6'2", so not freakishly tall, but not short either, but I'm fairly confident that most people are going to find the handle way too short. The second thing you notice immediately upon using it is that it works a lot better with downforce. The tool doesn't weigh that much and it'll cruise over the top of acorns, and to prevent this and increase the capture rate, I'm pushing down to really flex the cage around those nuts. Pushing down on the tool though has me hunching over even more, and the ergonomics of making it work well just can't be sustained for all that long. It's just not very comfortable to use. The third thing is that it's fairly small and tedious, and if you don't have a lot of acorns, maybe it's a solution, but I have way too many mature trees dropping far too many acorns in way too big of an area for this tool to be taken seriously. They do make larger versions, but I'm not sure that would fix my problem, and I'm considering this tool more of a novelty. It does work, but there are way too many cons for me to actually use it as a solution in my yard. So on to the next. The weirdest and funniest method I've seen mentioned is the shop vac approach. That's correct, literally vacuuming up the acorns. And it wasn't just one person either. I saw it on Reddit, I saw it mentioned on Facebook. Lots of people are doing this, so I knew that I had to try it. I'm using a 5 peak horsepower rigid shop vac, fairly standard operating equipment for the average homeowner, and I'm using this stock hose and stock attachment, so nothing crazy there. Running power to the vacuum is maybe the first challenge with this method, although I recently picked up the Ego shop vac, so battery electric with that tool, and that would work well for something like this, but most people are going to be running power via an extension cord, and that's what I'm doing in this video. My oak trees aren't too far away from the house. You can see it in the far right of the frame. It really wasn't a big deal for me, and a heavy-duty 100-footer extension cord from Amazon got me where I needed to go. I powered the vacuum on, and away I went. Feeling rather stupid and looking even stupider to my neighbors, I'm sure. I ran into problems right out of the gate in that the acorns were getting clogged in the attachment. It just wasn't big enough to let them through. That's an easy fix though. Just remove the attachment to get maximum suckage and run it with an open hose or straight pipe. You know the saying, it's not stupid if it works? Well, that applies here because I'm sure I looked like an absolute jackass vacuuming my yard, but it was actually working and working quite well. I was sucking up acorns like crazy, and the wheels of the shop vac allowed it to roll on the grass no problem. I did feel like I was getting hung up on the long grass, and if I had a fresh mow on the yard, I think that would be easier to work with. I checked the vacuum to see what I had collected, and obviously it's a lot of acorns, but surprisingly, it's a lot of dirt too. I dumped out the payload into my peat moss spreader because I wanted to see what the actual acorns collected amount looked like, and giving it a spin to sift it, you can see all that dirt falling right out. There's true downsides to this method that you have to know about in addition to running the extension cord, which we already talked about. Number one, it's kind of tedious, sort of like the last method. Now, I think if I had a bigger hose with more of a vacuum style stand-up attachment, that might be the move because then I'd be up off the ground and working a larger area at a time. However, it's still vacuuming your yard, and once again, if you have large mature trees, then your cleanup area is going to be huge, and this method won't seem as brilliant of an idea. The second downside is that the vacuum sucks up a lot of dirt in addition to the acorn. I was really surprised by how much dirt it lifted out of the grass in addition to everything I was trying to suck up. My vacuum was filled with acorns, leaves, grass clippings, dirt, sticks, everything, and it was heavy too. I do lawn leveling with a sand soil mix, and the thought of sucking up all that good top dressing out of my lawn makes me kind of second guess this method a little bit. Maybe that's not an issue for you, and if that's the case, this method actually works pretty well. The shop vac method is weird, sure, but everyone knows what a vacuum is and how it works, so maybe it's not actually that weird after all. The Bag-O-Nut Acorn Harvester is not only an incredibly strange tool that you've probably never seen before, but it's also not super obvious how it even works. This is another dedicated acorn collector, like its whole job is to do one thing. So I had high expectations going in. So check it out. The main drum is made of these plastic spikes or tines that have spherical nubs on the end, and it's designed to roll along the ground. And as it rolls over an acorn, the fingers sort of flex out around the nut and grab onto it, pulling it up off the ground. Okay, so what happens next? Well, the drum spins as it's being pushed along, and another set of fingers mesh with the green drum, and it pulls the acorns out of the tines, and then they fall into the collection basket. It's all mechanical, and the way the fingers fit between the tines is all very oddly satisfying to watch, and it's actually fairly impressive engineering because it all works so well together. You'll see that I've got it set up with the optional weight rack, and adding a few plates just increases the downforce and allows the tool to pick up more nuts, similar to the Garden Weasel tool from earlier. But unlike the Garden Weasel, this thing not only kind of works, it kicks ass. As soon as I started using the acorn harvester, I knew it was far and away better than any of the other methods I had tried. It quickly started grabbing acorns off the ground and rolling them around and into the hopper. The fingers worked perfectly to fit around the nuts, and there's actually two sizes of this tool. The green one is the larger version, but for small acorns, there's a blue version where the fingers are spaced a little tighter and closer together. I had really good luck with both versions. My acorns weren't exactly huge, yet the green one, which is the larger version, was still able to grab the acorns and the tops of the acorns that sometimes fall off. Unless you have really big acorns, the blue version might be the best, but the green shows up better on camera, so that's mostly what I'm using for the video. You can see it doesn't just pick up nuts either. It'll grab small sticks, leaves, pieces of bark. Basically anything that fits within the fingers is fair game, but it doesn't pull the dirt out of your yard like the shop vac method. And I tried it on some small pine cones too, and it picked those right up, no problem. Well, it picked up the pine cones and a bunch of pine needles too. You can see how quickly I'm covering ground as well. The drum isn't super wide, but it pushes so easily that it's not that hard to cover a giant area in record time. Emptying the hopper is super easy. It just lifts off the front, and within seconds, you're ready to empty it and keep going. That's a huge difference when compared to the other methods that I tried. I mentioned the weight plates earlier, and I did play around with that variable a little bit. If some weight seemed to help, then more weight must be better. Well, not really. The 35-pound plates didn't really fit because they were a larger diameter than the drum, but I did get a pair of 25s on there, and while it worked pretty good, it got way harder to push and maneuver. The pair of 10-pound plates worked the best and offered some additional downforce and pickup power while still being able to easily push across the ground. With every tool, there are pros and cons. So what didn't I like about the bag and nut harvester? Well, the only thing people aren't going to like is the price. Like most tools that work amazingly well, they cost quite a bit of money. This is also an American-based, family-owned business that manufactures right here in the US. It really comes down to what your time is worth and how you value it. All of these methods that I tested technically work, but for me in my situation, the bag and nut harvester outperformed everything by a mile. I mean, it wasn't even close. If you have large oak trees that make a huge mess every year and you're struggling to clean up the acorns over a large area, this is definitely the tool you should be checking out. If you like this video, check out some of my other review videos here and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.